initiating this discussion, and whatever interaction we have had in the last 1.5 years. I find that Kutch have been dealing with these issues and deliberating these issues threadbare, and therefore I think I must compliment them for their efforts. We have had a number of joint interaction with them in the past also, and we have benefited from them. I think the issue at this, today's discussion, to label the quality of service or label the services, broadband services, is an extremely timely one, because now in India, for example, we have saturated the data connectivity, and now we are going to the next phase, which is, voice connectivity, and now we are going to the next phase of data play. And as you must have seen, a lot of competition is happening in this sector. Prices of data are coming down, and obviously this is promoting the more and more data usage in the country. However, the quality of broadband remains a serious concern. If you look at the comparisons, then in the ICT penetration, we are way below the international levels. We are at 131 position out of some 160 or 165 countries, which is not really a great thing for a country like India, which has done so well in the information and communication technology software space. We should not be far behind. Especially after knowing that a investment in this sector or increase in penetration of broadband, a 10% increase contributes to 1.4% increase in GDP. And that is something which I think is the quickest method of really bringing about growth in the country, and as we all know, these internet and all these data technologies are really democratizing in that sense. So I think they bring information to everybody. They basically are so good for the country. So we need to make investments in these. As of now, we have certain limitations. One is that we have a very low fixed broadband infrastructure. It is as low as 1% or 1.5%. That means 1 out of every 100 people has got access to broadband, which is true also, because you just have 20 million fixed broadband, fixed lines, telephone lines, and not all of them are delivering broadband, though most of them are now. And there has been no growth in these lines since last about 15-20 years. So the result is we don't have the fixed infrastructure. So all our consumption of broadband is through the wireless, and wireless is the last access. The mobile operators or ISPs. ISPs, fortunately, sometimes they do have back-end fixed line, but typically it is the wireless delivery. I am told that 90% plus consumption of data in this country takes place through wireless. Now, wireless has its own issues. There are issues of congestion, certainly. Most importantly, as I keep on hearing from the telecom service providers, there are issues of what they call the laws of physics. Because the laws of physics start applying when you deal with electromagnetic radiation or the typical radiation or whatever, air waves, whatever you call them. So their claim is that when you are transmitting these data over the sort of waves, air waves, the light electromagnetic waves, you really cannot be certain that it will happen consistently and in a robust manner, reliable manner. So when just about a couple of years back, when TRAI issued a regulation saying that you should have a minimum threshold, minimum and maximum of the speeds which you advertise or which you do, you must ensure that. that regulation remains completely unimplemented. And why does it remain completely unimplemented? They say this is basically a laws of physics. So at some point in time when you are traveling or even not traveling, it may happen that you may not receive any packets for a split second, and therefore the minimum speed commitment is something which is impossible to give in views of the laws of physics. So this is a real difficult situation. Now, obviously it is like this, that when you are driving on a road, there may be a place where there is a pit, there is a gadha, and there you have to come to a speed 0 and then you again drive. So what I cannot assure that it will be 60 kilometers per hour throughout the road, throughout the journey. Maybe at some point it will become 0 also. And that 0 becomes the global minima. So in a way they say we can't assure that global minimum. So that's a serious constraint. And it is a solid argument, and I really have no other argument against it. However, we tell them that, friends, it's okay to have a situation where you can become 0 at some point in time. But then it cannot happen that when you are going on a, let's say, Yamuna Expressway, which I travel quite often on from Agra, between Agra and Delhi, you're going on Yamuna Expressway, you cannot say that there will be no 0 speed because it may be on toll places or some other, because of some other reasons it can be 0 speed at some time. But you should certainly be able to tell me that your speed, average speed will not be less than 50 or less than 60 or less than 100. So let us talk about averages then. And averages is something on which everybody is depending on. 2% call drop average was actually the idea which has persisted and subsisted for a long time. So these averages, so what we are coming up with is that in a given time window, and it can be a moving window, you should maintain a minimum average which you advertise. This should happen, and there should be no argument against this, that while the laws of physics may drop it down to 0 at some moment, it should not happen that it is always 0 and still you say you are still, you are flying a bullock cart and then claim that I am taking you by an aeroplane. That should not happen, because that will really fall in the category of false advertisements. And of course, talking of advertisements, you must have seen advertisements where in a jungle there's a fire burning and some fellows are dancing, and then they find that within 2 minutes the movie has been downloaded. I don't know how many people have experienced that. Kind of. So this is what happens. So I think there is a serious issue which we face here, and therefore I said in the beginning that the effort by Kurtz to really bring down certain minimal disclosures. That look, this is what it does. The average speed X, whatever other peak speed Y, or whichever way you want, there may be n number of parameters. So therefore that disclosure is important. Second issue comes basically, we have believed, TRAI has believed since beginning, and I am not an exception to that consumer is at the center of entire thing. Every industry exists for its consumers. And telecom is so different because no industry in this country has got 1 billion customers. No industry. This is the only industry which has got that many customers.
Food industry.
No, food industry, but maybe some particular type of food may have customers which are 2 crores, some other type of food will have something, and India is such a diverse country even in food terms. I understand. So essentially what is happening, it's a very major customer base. But the other characteristics of this industry is also that while the customers in other industries may be low, the value or the transaction value is relatively high. So let's say customers of furnitures. I'm just giving an example. The average purchase value may be 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees. Somebody buys a chair, somebody buys a whole sofa and stuff like that. So many industries, the characteristics is that number of customers is low, but the value, average transaction value is very high. And therefore, if there are deficiencies in the service, people can go to consumer courts because the stakes are a bit high. If I have suffered a loss of 20,000 rupees, I will certainly be going to a consumer court and then, pleading my case before them that, look, this is what happened, and I will be able to fight that case. In the telecom industry, the problem is that, the number of consumers is very high, but the value of the transaction is very low. So therefore, if a consumer suffers, he suffers, let's say, 100 rupees worth of loss, or a simple irritation in terms of call drops, or a major irritation when there's a goal symbol, the data is not coming, and something is happening, and you just keep on watching that. And interestingly, what happens in a digital world, even a 1 second's delay looks like a delay of years altogether. Because your expectations are very high. You expect things to be instantaneous, and if you experience a delay of 1 second, that also looks eternity. And therefore, but as I said, the value of that is very low. And if the value of that is very low, my friends from Consumer Affairs Department know that the District Consumer Forum or the Consumer Protection Act of 1986, if I'm not wrong, 1986, basically envisaged that consumers will be able to go there and even on a simple piece of paper they will write that, look, this is my problem, Your Honor, and you please solve my problem. They were supposed to be the institutions which were supposed to be consumer friendly. They were supposed to look into the consumers' grievances and resolve them. I'm not criticizing them, but let me tell you, today the process of District Consumer Forum has become as complex as the process of a civil court. You go there, you file an affidavit. So you go to some vakil who basically will draft out affidavit in a legal language. Then you hire an advocate. Even if you don't hire an advocate, you go there and it's a sad situation. I myself fought a couple of cases in the consumer court, so you can call me a little veteran in that situation, and I know how these courts function. So what has happened is that those institutions which were created to be very informal, very consumer friendly, have turned out to be the institutions which are actually courts of laws. And it becomes very difficult, and especially when you have ex-judges and these kind of people working, they have their own way of functioning, and they also want some systematic things to happen. But then a consumer thinks that what is this systematic? Now imagine a person who has suffered a loss of 100 rupees. Will he really think of going to a consumer court? No, because his affidavit itself is going to cost him 300 rupees. So 300 rupees, what will he do in a consumer court? He say, भाई मुझे मिलेगा, जवाब मिलेगा, नहीं मिलेगा, क्या होगा, वो भी संभव नहीं है. And the jurisprudence which has emerged essentially says कि it is not like America where किसी की जेब पे कोका कोला गिर गया, वो गरम जो मैकडोनल्ड वाला गिर गया कॉफी, तो he got some $1 million. यहाँ पे तो इस तरह का कानून नहीं है. यहाँ पे तो जो आपको एक्चुअल लॉस हुआ, you will get a value of that. So आपका लॉस 100 रुपीज हुआ, 500 रुपया आपने खत्म कर दिया एफिडेविट फाइल करने में, और 100 रुपया बाद में आपको मिल जाएगा. और वो मिल जाएगा, उसका एग्जीक्यूशन कराने के लिए एक दूसरी प्रोसेस है. It is not as if the court decides that yes, you give him 100 rupees and the guy will give 100 rupees. No, he will not give you, and then you file another complaint, petition, and again another process starts. So even when the consumer protection courts systems were absolutely fantastic, even then, because of the low value of complaints, no consumer or very few consumers will go. Suppose my bill has become 50,000 rupees and I did not call anybody, or my thing is not, then of course I'll certainly go because 50,000 is too much. But those are rare examples. Typically the sufferings are of the order of 100 rupees, 200 rupees, some value added service, some ringtone was added without my permission. These are the kind of things. So then those fellows call the TSPs, they are the party and they are the judge also. This is the first breach of a natural principle where nobody can be a judge in his own case. Here is a case where the TSP is a judge in his own case. So they decide, and thereafter the appeal also lies in the TSP's domain only. So that's why we have actually recommended, and interestingly there is a case in which the Honorable Supreme Court has decided that the District Consumer Forum cannot hear the telecom service cases because there is a specific law called Indian Telegraph Act 1885. This is the legal situation now. Howsoever uncommon or counterintuitive it may sound, but unfortunately this is the case. So the result is that the consumer has no choice. We had recently, TRAI has given recommendations that you have an ombudsman similar to many other sectors and similar to in telecom sector in other places, in other countries. We should have, because after all there should be some fear in the telecom service provider's mind that they should resolve the complaints honestly. Otherwise they know this guy has come to us, he will get dissatisfied, he will come back to us again, he will get dissatisfied and has nowhere to go. So, there is no problem. So one is this issue of quality of service not being met, then what is the recourse to a consumer. Second issue is that in a voice world, I am very clear that I talk for 35 minutes today, 70 minutes tomorrow, and typically what should be my bill, roaming, showing. Broadly I have an idea. In a data world, I have no idea. Really, that how much I consume, where, when did I consume, and those kinds of things. So it becomes very difficult that even if I am being fleeced, I have no way to really figure out as to how much I have been fleeced. These are some of the challenges I wanted to point before you a consumer or in a telecom world faces. Whenever we have consultations, all the telecom service providers send their people, very articulate people, and they are able to present their arguments. We don't get consumers or their groups presenting their side of the argument. And obviously, if an authority or a body hears only one side of the argument, it is typically tempted to accept those arguments, which is what also happens, though we try not to do that because we should hear everybody's arguments, and we always try, because that's what our act says. Our act says that we should do a consumer protection, quality of service, we should be transparent, fair play, growth of the industry, everything is merged, but consumer protection is important, and we believe that because of the typical nature of this sector, where you have 1 billion consumers, very low value transactions, no recourse anywhere beyond these telecom service provider ecosystem, are some of the debilitating conditions which should be taken care of. So that's another issue. Then the question is, we always think that there should be consumer choice, the choice of the consumer, because suppose there are competing products, the consumers must have a choice. And I'll exemplify this with the example of the broadcasting sector, which we also regulate. What happens is that when you go to a site or when you talk to the fellow, whether it is a Airtel or Tata Sky or TEN or any cable or the other DTH or HITS or IP, there are various platforms which have come up. When you talk to them, they are so confusing, the situations, that a customer doesn't know what is best for him. They'll say if you take the southern package, then this will happen, mega package, this will happen, all these packages. And interestingly, yesterday itself we were hearing a case in which the advertisement was given in such a manner that the consumer probably, just click something and purchase something. And then he was told, if you want HD channels, instead you will get, in so much of money, you will get so many channels. It did not say that you will get only SD channels, only standard definition channels. So you purchase that. After that, when you say, I want this channel, no, you are given only SD. HD ke liye paisa alag se dijiye. So 175 rupees for SD channels. So what happens is that sometimes the service providers themselves provide you information in such a manner which is so unevenly balanced in favor of one particular choice. And secondly, the other extreme can be that they give you so many choices that you don't know what is good for me. An average consumer will be completely confused to see these choices. So this is what happens, for example, taking another example, and I'm not really, kind of telling you, your company's example. The other day we were hearing, Honorable High Court had told us that you talk to the Facebook fellows, not Facebook, the WhatsApp fellows. That's your company, right? You have acquired it. So WhatsApp fellows, to see how they are, how they have decided to share the information with the Facebook. Initially their terms of references were that they will not share the information, and then suddenly they have decided to share. So we said, let's see what is the way they are, they said, no, we have given consumer a choice. If the consumer doesn't want to share, he can still continue to use WhatsApp. We have given them a choice. I said, how have you given the choice? Let's see. So then we saw these screenshots. Then we saw, how, let's say if I am a user of WhatsApp, what is the option which I got? So essentially the option was, yes, I agree. It did not say another button, no, I don't agree. There was no button like that. That, yes, I agree. I mean, there should be, if there is a balance, it should be yes and no, both side by side. Yes, I agree. No, I don't agree. Still, I continue to want to use it. And in case you say, no, I don't agree and I don't want to use WhatsApp, that could also be a third choice. But actually, there was only one choice. And the other choice was obfuscated into something, it was there. But then you click another button and then you go to some place. So, very difficult, A normal human being will take about half an hour to really figure out as to where that no is hidden. So essentially, giving consumer choices in a friendly manner is also extremely important, in a manner that he can make informed choices. And one of the ways this can happen is that if you can, across the service providers, if you can standardize it. If you can standardize the way, what are the parameters and what are the choices, it will probably be helpful. If let's say I'm selling pizza, and if you know pizza, la margarita, whatever. So if I am, similarly, if I am selling some product and across the same product lines, if 4 companies are selling the same product, probably there could be a consensus among companies that this should be the way the parameters of the product would be advertised. And if I understand correctly, Vipul, this is what CUTS proposed to do, that you want to label these, these kinds of quality of parameters in the same way as a nutritional label is, where it says that, this is the protein, this is the carbohydrates, and this is the calorie, etc., etc. So this way, this labeling makes it very easy for consumers to comprehend, to compare across domains, and to figure out as to what is best for them and which one they should buy. So therefore, the consumer choice is important, but the consumer choice should be comprehensible and simple and easy for the consumers to make, and that is a very, very desirable quality. Unfortunately, we in India, because we are struggling with the broadband itself, the definition itself, whether it should be 512K, I think it still continues to be 512K. Imagine, in this world of gigabytes, we are still at kilobytes. So because we are struggling with other issues relating to availability. For example, from the demand side, we have the awareness, affordability, and other kinds of local contents and local stuff. That's one part. On the supply side, we have poor infrastructure, we have low fixed lines, and we have other kinds of speed issues. So we are struggling with these issues. In other places, in other domains, other regulators, Ofcom, Singapore, etc., I read from these papers that they have already prescribed these labels. And I think we in India must do that as soon as possible. So what I would say as a result of this deliberation, we would be very happy and grateful that if we can get some recommendations based on what is happening in other domains and what we should be doing in our place. One should also take the specifics of our place into account, consider 97% or 93% is delivered through wireless, and that situation is not going to change overnight. So those situations, considering those, what will be the, for example, minimum speed. Now minimum speed, if you prescribe, this is not going to happen because laws of physics are going to, again, come back to us and haunt us. So it's better to have average speed or something of that sort. So what should be the more appropriate nutritional labels for our country, if you recommend as a part of the deliberation here today? And then what we can do, we will take it as a forward, issue a consultation paper, consult all these stakeholders, and possibly come up with some kind of specifications which can either be mandated by TRAI or can be voluntarily accepted by the industry. Both these things are okay with us so long as they are followed. So this way I think we should be able to move a roadmap, because I believe that India truly is at the cusp of a digital revolution. And this is not some kind of bhashan which I am giving. I truly believe that. Why I believe that is that because we have had, notwithstanding the fact that we are short in the fixed line infrastructure, we now have 1 billion mobile connections. We now have a huge amount of data play taking place even through mobile. And fortunately for many of the applications, they are not very great data hungry, in the sense that if you do a financial transaction will require probably exchange of a few kilobytes of data, not really megabytes even, maybe bytes. So fortunately many of these transactional applications do not require huge data consumption except videos and except other kinds of games, etc., which we are not. So I think what is happening is we have a robust, not so robust, but we certainly have a very good wireless data infrastructure now ready in the country, though we need fixed line, and TRAI keeps on advocating that, whether it is through BharatNet or whether it is through digital cable TV or whether through the satellites. Those things we will continue to do, but nevertheless we have a workable infrastructure, and we have even this workable infrastructure we have progressed. It's not as if we should say that it is certainly a prerequisite, but it is not such a prerequisite that we can't do anything without it. We have a very robust system of the softwares running. In fact, India is in a league of those countries which have created such a robust, soft infrastructure, which people are trying to emulate now. We have a digital identity infrastructure which is 1.2 billion strong. Out of 1.3, we have got 1.15 billion people having Aadhaar, which is unique. And most importantly, it's authenticable. You can authenticate your presence anywhere, prove it. And the electronic KYC is happening today. And Aadhaar is like the hourglass architecture. It sits in the middle. It's a platform. You have a lot of innovations taking place downwards, which is device levels, and you have a lot of innovation taking place on top of it, which is basically applications like eKYC, applications like eSign, digital locker. I mean, it's really what people call the India stack has happened. The unified payment interface which our country has created is unique in the world. It is so unbundled that I can have application from one application provider, I can have my bank account in another bank, you can have your bank account in third bank, and you can have your application service provider in the fourth firm. And then sitting in between is NPCI. So it's actually an agreement in 5 parties. It's a 4-party participating in this transaction and 5 parties sitting in between. And when you have number of parties, the probability of some party saying something to somebody else increases. The closer the interaction, the safer it is considered. But let me tell you, this five-party interaction is so robust in terms of the cyber security, in terms of the hacking, in terms of the other things. This framework is so robust that India can be proud of this framework. So we have a whole range of things and systems and softwares which are running on top of it. Other countries are trying to learn from us. We have a completely online infrastructure. We can deliver. Now you see, we have a